With sexual orientation and behavior, this has people usually confuse your gender identity with your sexual orientation. So they might confuse when somebody says that they're a trans woman or that they're a transgender, they might confuse that with their sexual orientation. And those two things are not the same. So sexual orientation is what a friend of mine, his name is Jay Matlow. He's a master trainer as well. He's also a trainer. He does the same work that I do. He's an activist. So I'm sharing his name because he's in a manual that a lot of people use in their organizations when they do this kind of training. So Jay coined the word attractuality. So it's not an actual word, but he coined it, and it resonated with me so much that I also now use it in a lot of trainings and a lot of work that I do. So attractuality can be used synonymously with sexual orientation, who you're attracted to, who you have a crush on, who gives you the butterflies when you see them. So your attractuality, so that's in the heart space. So I remember I said your sex, biological sex is between your legs. Your sexual identity is between your head or in between your ears rather. And then your sexual orientation is in your heart space. It's your attractuality, who you're attracted to, who you have a crush on. Can someone give me maybe the different types of sexual orientations? Maybe let's say 3 or 4. They're a bit more, but I just want to see if people know the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation. Is there anyone who wants to share different sexual orientations? Anyone?
Okay, it's Fiso again.
Thanks, Fiso.
Okay, the most typical ones that come to mind, it's male attracted to female, female attracted to male, male attracted to male, or female attracted to female. And then I don't know with the asex if it's something like no attraction whatsoever.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much, Fiso. Yes, so you are correct. Those are the different types of attractualities, but I'm also looking for the common terms or words that we use. So maybe I'll give a hint as well. The LGBT, someone has said it, I think it's Azande in the...
is it, I'm thinking of now your heterosexuals.
That's also correct. Yes, heterosexual is correct. Okay. When you were saying males attracted to females, or females attracted to males, that's definitely heterosexuality. But there's something very important that I put there under keywords, that word levels, right? So when we speak about sexual orientation and behavior, we're also going to talk about the levels of attraction. By that, I mean, how are those people attracted to the other people? So sexual orientation can also be called gender orientation, right? So I'll use the genders interchangeably with the sexes. So when somebody is a man, sometimes they could be male, sometimes they're a man who's not male, because I know that's a bit confusing. Yes, Queen asked if the word preference is also preferable. Yes, you can also use preference, but some people cringe on the word because they feel that preference is something that you choose. And people don't like to be told that they chose their sexual orientation or who they're attracted to. So they prefer the word orientation rather, but yes, sometimes people use the word preference. So as I was saying, a man or a male is who is attracted to females or women or people of the opposite sex and or gender to them are called heterosexual people. And these people in society, in the street language or informal language, which we all use, we call them straight people, heterosexual or straight people, people who are attracted to people of the opposite sex or gender to them. And then we also find the terms, I think they're in the chats there. Someone shared them in the chats. It's people who are bisexual, gay, lesbian. So a lesbian person is a woman who is attracted to other women or females, and this person would then be called a lesbian. And then a gay person or a gay man is somebody who's a man, who identifies as a man, or who was born, who has a penis, who's male, and this, but not always. Remember, I said gender it can be gender orientation, but it can also be sexual orientation. So I know it might be a little bit confusing. So maybe to make it less confusing, we'll stick with the gender. I think I'll use the gender because that's what we see. The first thing we see when we see people, we don't see what they have covered between their legs, what they have, because we're wearing clothes, we covered, so we don't know what they are. So we sort of assume their gender. So we'll say a man who's attracted to other men, because we are looking at somebody, assuming that they are a man because we are looking at them. So I'll use the gender instead of their sex, right? So someone says, sometimes I get confused as to when to use the word queer. I'll get to that in a bit. I'll get to that word. Thank you so much for that. So, and then a gay man is a man, like I was saying, who's attracted to other men. And then a bisexual person is somebody who is attracted to men and women, or they could also be attracted to men and gender non-conforming people, or they could be attracted to women and gender non-conforming people. So to make it less confusing, the word bi means bi, it means two. So it means they're attracted to two genders. So it could be, remember I said there are more than two genders. It's men, women, gender non-conforming, or gender non-binary. So a bisexual person could be somebody who is attracted to, when they look at somebody, when they're looking at people, they've got an attraction for people who are gender non-conforming, and those who conform and are men, or those who are women. So two of the three, or two of the many. So it's usually, that's what bisexual is. But then there's also another level of what bisexuality was in the past. So it's called pansexual. So a pansexual person is a person who is attracted to all genders, all sexes. And for them, it doesn't really matter. They are attracted to the character of the person first, or they are attracted to anybody regardless of what they might have between their legs. If the person is intersex, if they're male, female, if they're trans, a pansexual person can be attracted to anybody, and they can be in a relationship with anybody, right? So maybe just to go back a little bit to make this maybe, I don't know, more confusing, but also more interesting, is that sexual orientation is something that attraction is on more than one level. And by more than one level, I mean that when somebody says that they are heterosexual or straight, they are a man who's attracted to women on more than one level. They're attracted to women physically, sexually, emotionally, intellectually, religiously, maybe economically. They're attracted to the person of the opposite in more than one level, in many ways. Same for somebody who says they're a gay man. They're attracted to other men on more than one level, sexually, romantically, whatever, intellectually, on all those levels, religiously, spiritually. It's more than one level. And I'll get to the reason why I'm saying on more than one level. So somebody who's bisexual can be in a relationship with either a man, let's say, or a woman, or a gender non-conforming person, and they are attracted to the person on more than one level again. So they could be in a relationship. They see themselves being in a relationship with that person, maybe getting married if marriage is something that's interesting for them, maybe getting married, maybe having kids if having kids is something that they want to do. So with that person. So a gay person, again, would be somebody who says, I'm a man, I'm a gay man, meaning they want to spend the rest of their lives with another man, they want to have kids, maybe get married if that's something that they're interested in doing. So I hope that clarifies that. It has to be on more than one level, seeing themselves having a life with a person of the opposite or the same sex. And the reason I'm saying that, it brings us to the behavior and acts, right? Sometimes people might have sex or engage in sexual behavior and acts with people of the same sex and or gender to theirs, and they still say, I'm not gay, or I'm not bisexual, I'm not pansexual. I am a heterosexual man, I'm a straight man, but yes, I did have sexual relations with another man. Has anyone heard of this term? You can unmute maybe and share if you have heard of the term before, if you've heard of this. Similarly, maybe a woman who's heterosexual who says, look, I'm not bisexual, I'm not pansexual, I'm not lesbian, I want to spend the rest of my life with a man. I'm a woman. I want to be with a man. I want to have a family with a man. But they have had, or they might be having or engaging in same-sex behavior or acts. Anyone who's heard of that before?
Azande here.
Yes, Azande.
I did write in the chat that I had come across a term called MSM. I don't know if that's still the correct term.
Yes, that's
but
definitely.
From my understanding, yeah.
Okay. Yes. So the word MSM, do you know what it stands for in full?
Is it men who have sex with men?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. Thank you so much, Azande. So yes, and then the opposite would be women who have sex with women, right? So it would be WSW, and we also have MSM. So meaning that those people do not, it's for them, it's not really an orientation per se, it's more of a behavior. So there are a lot of those people in society, and there's a vast reason why people do that. Some people do that for entertainment reasons, transactional reasons. Some people do that because they are experimenting and they realize that it's not for them. Some people do it because it's situational. By situational, I mean that maybe, let's say, they are in a confined space, maybe in prison. Yes, maybe I'll give an example with prison, right? So they engage in same-sex acts. Some people do it because it's fun for them. It's just something that they get a thrill from doing. So there are a variety of reasons, and a vast number of reasons that we can never really fully know why people do it. But the ones that we know is that people do it because they're experimenting. It's for transactional purposes. People do it because they're in confined spaces. Some people do it because, it's something that they like to engage in once in a while, but they do not identify maybe an MS. They call themselves an MSM because they do not see themselves. They don't want anything beyond the sexual act or the sexual behavior. So I think because a lot of people confuse that and they say, yeah, no, we had that so-and-so did something with a guy. No, he's definitely gay. That guy is gay, or that guy is bisexual. They assume someone's sexual or gender orientation because of a behavior or an act that they engaged in previously, or that they occasionally engage in, or that they continuously engage in. So until somebody says that, yes, I do identify as gay, or I do identify as lesbian, you cannot assume their sexual orientation. Unless they have confided in you or shared it with you, or they publicly shared it with everyone. Okay, so maybe before we move on, I just want to quickly ask, and I would really appreciate it if someone can share their experience, or if maybe a couple of people. I think this one can actually be open for a couple of people about a crush, right? So some people, so this goes back to the notion where people like to say, but people choose their sexual orientation. But it's something that you choose. The reason I'm asking about a crush is, I think for me, that's proof that nobody teaches you, or you choose to be of a certain sexual orientation. And by that, I mean, do you remember when you had your first crush? How old were you? Can people maybe share that in the chat, or you can unmute and maybe just quickly share if you remember your first crush. Maybe if you want to share the experience of remembering your first crush, how was it? Was it a person of the same or the opposite gender, if you are comfortable sharing that as well? But basically what I'm saying, and maybe I'll go first. I mean, mine was definitely at a young age. I think I was 9 or 10. And it wasn't strange for me. I had my crush was somebody who was a man or a boy. They're men now, but we were boys at that age. And it was not something that somebody taught me. There was just an attraction. I could feel it. I was excited when I was around them. I could see, I always wanted to be around this person. And I only realized later on that it was actually a crush as I was growing older, as I got into my teens and started having more crushes. I realized, oh, that was a crush, you know. But nobody taught me how to be attracted to that person. Nobody taught me how to be, to say that I have a crush or to be in love with somebody. Nobody teaches you those kind of things. Attractuality and a crush is something that just happens. And we all go through, not all, I'm assuming, but I think most people do go through having a crush or having a first crush. Maybe some people have it at a later age. Some people have it at a younger age. Like I said, I've had it at 9 or 10, my first crush. Some people have had it earlier, like at 7, even some people at 14 or 15 had their first, but nobody teaches you how to be attracted. So for me, that also brings us and ties in the point of no one teaches us how to have a crush, right? I think Bonita is saying in the comments, I recall having several crushes on males and females through all my life. Thank you so much for sharing that, Bonita. And definitely, I mean, we all have a lot of crushes. For some people, it's for both genders. For some people, it's for one. For some people, it's all of them at some point, and then it starts to go in one direction, and you realize that no, it's actually just for men or for women. For me, so but yeah, basically, it's different times and different crushes for different people. But the emphasis here and the point I'm making is nobody teaches us how to have a first crush. Meaning nobody teaches you how to be gay or how to be lesbian or how to be bisexual. It's just something that happens. It's just some of the things that we will probably never really know, because some people argue if it's, I see Bonita also said if it's trauma, if it's, we really don't know if it's nature, if it's whatever, but it's not something that's taught. One thing we can agree on is that having a crush or that just happens. And maybe lastly, while we're speaking on sexual orientation and it not being a choice, is that if you look in the news about what's been happening in Uganda and other African countries, but Uganda has been in the news mostly, is the fact that nobody would choose their sexual orientation or to identify with a different gender, or to be transgender rather, because it's something that is still so discriminated against in Africa. In some countries like Uganda, you can even be jailed or killed, legally be killed for being who you are. So I don't think that those activists who are in Uganda who are running away would choose to be something that is so discriminated against. And I'm saying this because, again, I know you work with a lot of young people, you work with a lot of different and diverse people. So when you come across those kind of people, have a bit of compassion, have a bit of understanding. Not saying give them special treatment or special treatment or preference, but have a bit of compassion, because this is something that society still pushes against. So this is something, even in a country like South Africa, where the laws are amazing on paper. I mean, we've got one of the best constitutions in the world. We probably have our constitution is probably in the top 5, if you're not in the top 3 even, of the best constitutions in the world. But on the ground, it's not the same. A lot of people who identify with the sexual, with the gender, with being transgender, or with the different sexual orientation than being heterosexual, they are usually discriminated against. You still hear cases of hate crimes. They're still being killed. They're still being molested. They're still being assaulted because of their gender identity and expression. So part of doing this masterclass today is not only for you in the line of work that you might do or with the people that you interact with, but also for you as an individual. If you do not identify as a community, to become an ally, to become somebody who advocates for the community, to have a bit of compassion, even if you're not an ally, but understand that people do not choose their sexual orientation or their gender identity. It's something that is psychological. It's something that just happens. It's something that people, it just is. Okay, so I see on this slide that I'm sharing now, the term asexual right at the end says somebody who does not experience sexual attraction. I think Sfiso might have mentioned this. So maybe just to cover that before we move on. Yes, so an asexual person, there's about 7 or 8 different types of asexual people. Some asexual people don't have an asexual attraction at all, but it doesn't mean that they don't want to be in relationships. They might get into relationships that are more emotionally connected, and they might want to have strong emotional connections, but they do want to have relationships, right? So, but for some asexual people, once they are comfortable with somebody, they could then start developing sexual feelings towards that person. For some asexual people, they might have sexual relations which are more non-penetrative, where we are both having sexual relations where we are sharing a space, but we're not having intercourse per se, but we are having sex in the same space together with ourselves individually, but together. I don't know if that makes sense. But like I said, there's about 8 different types. But for some asexual people who do engage in sex, for them, that emotional attraction, that emotional foundation needs to be there, and it needs to be strong enough for them before they can engage in any sexual activities with another person. But some asexual people just prefer to have sex with themselves, meaning that they prefer to self-pleasure instead of having sex with people. So that's something that you can do a little bit of research on in the future. To save time, I want to move. And thanks, Bonita, for your comment there. Yes, definitely. I mean, we do not want any special privileges to any specific gender or to people who might be trans, but compassion and understanding, and knowing that that person might be coming from a family, that young person maybe might be coming from a young family where they can't be themselves, and you might be the only person who feels like a safe space for them. So the only reason I'm sharing this and making sure that I go deep, I mean, some of this might be relevant in the line of work, but I'm going deep so that wherever you are, and because it might be a different situation in different kind of settings, so that you understand and know what you're dealing with. Okay, so again, we are in closing before we go to the last part, which is coming out. Sexual orientation, gender identity and expression in a nutshell is that sexual orientation, I'm sorry that my notes got cut, I think, when I was making notes yesterday. The sexual orientation is the lesbian, gay, bisexual, asexual, pansexual, straight as well. They must all be under that category, under that umbrella. And then that last part, the sex characteristics, it's female, male, intersex. And then the gender, the gender identity, which is cisgender. I think I might not have mentioned this before. So the opposite of transgender is cisgender. So a cisgender person is somebody who, I'll give an example again with myself. I am cisgender because I was born male. I was assigned the birth of boy at birth, meaning that I'm a man now. So meaning that I'm cisgender because I align or identify with the gender that I was assigned at birth. But somebody who says that they do not align with that, they align with the gender of the opposite gender to what was assigned to them at birth, they are called transgender. So the opposite of transgender is cisgender. So I'm sharing this so that people avoid using words like, it's not the common one, it's not the typical one. So we just say the typical, the common one. So people tend to use those kind of words, not saying that it's wrong, but I think a more appropriate word would be using cisgender and transgender, not something like transgender and then the normal one. So, not saying words like normal. Because it might be your normal, but it's not always my normal. Okay, and then I'm gonna get to the this, and then I'll get to coming out now. So in terms of the word queer, somebody asked about the word queer in the comments, and I think that's just an umbrella term that LGBTIQA plus people use. So the word queer can be used as an umbrella term. So instead of saying to you in this presentation, if I want to share my sexual orientation and gender identity, instead of saying to you, hi everyone, my name is Lerato and I'm a gay man, I could say something like, hi, my name is Lerato and I'm queer. So it could mean that I fall anywhere under that umbrella, anywhere under that spectrum. I could be intersex, I could be a gay man, I could be a bisexual man. So sometimes we just use that because those letters are a lot. Sometimes people forget which letter to use. Sometimes people forget which letter comes after which one. They want to peg it in a certain order. So for people who might not be in the community, that might also be a bit challenging, and it might also be a bit of a hassle to remember. So the word queer is an umbrella term. However, that Q there plays two parts. So it plays the part of queer, but it can also play the part of questioning, right? So it's not always queer only. The Q in LGBTIQA+ also stands for questioning. Questioning might be just somebody who might be still questioning their gender identity, still questioning their sexual orientation, because not everybody gets it clear at a young age, like me when I was 9 years old, and I had my first crush on a guy, and then I had a second crush maybe when I was 12 or 13 on a guy again, and then it became clear for me that, oh, okay, I think I'm a gay man. So not everybody has it that clear, but for some people it is something that they question, and it goes a little bit, it takes a little bit of time for them to get to the point where they understand where they might fall under the LGBTIQA+. For some people, they might identify as gay at a certain age, and then they realize that they grow up that, no, I'm actually bisexual. So they start questioning a little bit before they can see again where they fall within that spectrum of the LGBTIQA+ community.